Hi guys, it's your Island Girl and I'm back with another one for you today. And today I'm checking out Trump never saw this coming. Canada just blocked US access to Alaska. Now this one took me by surprise when I saw it in the comment section from Brian Mack. I'm like, okay, interesting. So I was like, I didn't even know that this was taking place. So I was like, I need to check this one out. So we're going to get right into this one because I don't know that if majority of you know that I am living in Alaska. That's home for me and my family. And when I saw this one, I'm like, okay, now that's interesting because Canada is the bordering. It's the only land route that have that. The US have access from the lower 48 to Alaska. Let me put that there first. So it's interesting. And a lot of our fresh veg and so forth also comes through on freights and trucks through using Canada as the road. That, like I said, it's the only land mass that connects us to the lower 48. And we have to go through Canada for that to happen because it's the biggest state, but also the most underpopulated state. It's very expensive here. And no, I'm happy, but we're going to get right into this one. Thank you, Brian, for sending this one my way. So here goes. So if you're new here, welcome. Thank you for coming in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this one. And thank you so much, always, my regular schmegler, for coming in. Let's check this one out together because I'm interested to see what they're about to say.
Trump thought Canada would roll over. He was dead wrong. When he slapped tariffs on Canada, he probably expected some complaints, a little pushback maybe. But instead, Canada hit back hard. And now it's threatening something Trump never saw coming: US access to Alaska. That's right. One bold move by Canada could make Alaska feel a whole lot less American. But how did it come to this? And just how far could Canada go? Let's break it down. Alaska is a huge state, 663,268 square miles of rugged wilderness, glaciers, and some of the most mind-boggling geography in the US. You know what else is mind-boggling? Alaska is one of only 2 US states that isn't connected to the lower 48 by land. We're basically talking about a distant cousin of the US, sitting all the way up there, separated by a whole lot of space. But guess who plays a huge role in making sure Alaska is still somewhat part of the US? Yep, Canada. Alaska's only land access to the rest of the US runs through the Great White North. So to get from Alaska to the continental US, you have to go through Canada, whether by road, rail, or sea. Air travel is the only exception, but even that's tricky.
Because, see, everything that he's saying is so true. And even air travel, we go through Canada's airspace as well. So when I first saw this thing about the tariff, I'm like, this don't sound so wonderful. But I wasn't following because of, a busy mama of 5. I wasn't really keeping up. But I'm like, this don't sound good at all. This is scary. Because things here is already expensive. And people wonder, why live in Alaska? Because it looks so, it's so far away and the terrain is so out there. Like, why? It's a beautiful state, don't get me wrong. So, yeah, this is interesting.
While it's possible to fly directly to Alaska from some US cities, most flights still need to cross Canadian airspace. So unless you're willing to take a very roundabout route, Canada's presence is hard to escape. This especially applies to land transport. Alaska shares a massive 1,538-mile border with Canada, stretching from the icy Arctic Ocean all the way down to the Pacific. You've got the Yukon Territory and British Columbia on the east side of Alaska. And the whole thing's one massive stretch of terrain that makes most people wonder why anyone would even want to live there. But hey, it's home to about 740,000 people, so they probably make it work. But seriously, let's talk about that border. It's no friendly, neat little line like most international borders. The thing's practically invisible in places, like on the summit of Mount St. Elias, towering 18,008 feet above sea level. In other places, it's more like a giant obstacle course. That's why the International Boundary Commission had to trek some of the most remote and unforgiving landscapes on the planet just to mark the border. In some areas, the commission cut through forests and mountains with metal cones, and in others, the boundary goes straight through the middle of the mountains, where no one in their right mind would want to build anything. Still, the boundary is there all right. marked and crucial to everything. The insanity of large portions of the Canada-Alaska border only underscores the importance of roads connecting Alaska to Canada, and thus the US. Essentially, Canada's got the power to hold the US state hostage in a way that no one else can, and trust us, Canada is well aware of this. So what is Canada doing with its role as Alaska's gatekeeper? Well, it's coming for trucks trying to make their way from the US to Alaska first. Granted, it's not the entirety of Canada that's targeting Alaska in this way. It's mostly one province. It's British Columbia, the towering might of Canada's western realm. The province shares its northern border with Alaska, making it the key land link between the US state and the rest of Canada. Without British Columbia, the state of Alaska would essentially be an isolated entity with virtually no access to land-based transportation.
Interesting. So the trucking, it's not that we get a lot of truck in, but like I said, I think I said it earlier, it's a majority of fruits, especially fresh veg, it gets here faster than they were to use ship. Even though a lot of our stuff, food and stuff is coming in by air and sea, we still do have a small amount coming in by freights. So if they were to cut that off, or if they were to add tolls, the price of stuff will go through the roof.
And if the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, gets his way, US truckers will get to experience the isolation firsthand. Namely, Eby is preparing to impose tolls on commercial trucks traveling through the province on their way to Alaska.
What?
Tolls are essentially fees charged for using certain roads, bridges, or tunnels, and they typically fund infrastructure or manage traffic.
Yeah.
But in this case, they have a slightly different job: to limit US access to Alaska. If implemented, these fees would add significant costs to shipments heading north, making it more expensive and potentially less efficient to transport goods from the lower 48 to Alaska. They're a direct response to Trump's tariffs, and Eby is making this clear. While the tolls might not come into effect immediately, they certainly serve as a warning shot. British Columbia is ready to make life harder for US truckers if the trade war continues to escalate. Canada won't just sit back and absorb the economic blow without pushing back. And it's not just about the money. This move could create a serious logistical headache. Alaska depends on this land route for most of its goods, and without it, the state would face crippling shortages. The goods being hit the hardest? Fresh produce and oil, according to Alaska State Senator Robert Myers. Myers himself is a trucker, so he knows what he's talking about. When asked,
I didn't even realize it would be an issue too. But we produce oil here. Okay, now. That's oil too? Okay, now.
Asked about the tolls and their intended targets, he said, "If you want to get something up here fast, you put it on a truck, not a barge." However, this still doesn't mean Canada is swarmed with trucks heading to Alaska all day long. In fact, the truck traffic headed to Alaska isn't nearly as intense as it is in the lower 48. According to the Alaska Trucking Association, 57.8% of manufactured tonnage is transported by trucks in Alaska, which is 13,170 tons per day. This lower number results from Alaska not functioning like most other states when it comes to transportation. The state is more dependent on air and water transport for moving goods, due to its remote nature and the difficulty of accessing it by land. What's more, the role of trucks in Alaska is more specialized. According to the National Highway System, Alaska's truck freight transportation mainly focuses on moving goods from seaports and airports to industrial sites and consumers, rather than hauling large volumes of goods over long distances like in the lower 48. This is a much smaller role, and Alaska only has 2,229 miles of designated roadways within the National Highway System, which is just 12.6% of its total public network, and not as much freight traffic passes through it as you would find in other states. This means that Canada's tolls would affect a crucial but relatively small segment of traffic. That is, of course, if British Columbia manages to implement these tolls in the first place. To achieve this symbolic victory, British Columbia would have to navigate a tricky legal and logistical minefield.
Isn't it illegal for them to do that though? Because I'm assuming, I think they can't do that because when it comes on to charge anything based on a law that was set in place. I might be wrong, but I guys, this is scary. This is scary. This is not good. You know? Because like he said, the trucking is not the number one thing, but it does get things here, and majority is by air and sea. Because there are a lot of places here in Alaska that you can't even drive to go to. You have to take small planes to get to certain villages and so forth. So here in Alaska, and them getting things is already expensive. Can you imagine if this takes place?
Let's tackle the legal aspect first.
Okay.
The proposed toll system faces a major legal challenge, an existing treaty between Canada and the US specifically concerning the Alaska Highway. The Alaska Highway is a 1,387-mile stretch of road that serves as the primary land route between Alaska and the rest of the US. Built during World War II as a military route, it's now the main overland connection for residents, industries, and tourists alike. The highway stretches through some of the most remote, rugged landscapes in North America, with weather and road conditions that make it feel more like a survival challenge than a scenic drive.
Yep, because if you're going to take that drive, you are warned. Listen, you make sure you have extra gas because you're going to go miles and about miles without seeing anything inside. No shops, no gas station, no nothing. It's not, like you said, it's not a scenic route. So I am aware of so many people that travel out of here and take the drive, and they say that it's beautiful, especially if you leave Alaska during the summertime. That's different. It's an easier drive, not in the wintertime. It's recommended for you not to drive this route during the wintertime because it's not easy. Because if you get stranded, you're doomed in a sense. So he's right on all these things.
But we'll explore this highway in more detail later. For now, let's get back to why its toll system would be a legal headache.
Okay.
You see, under the treaty we just mentioned, Canada is explicitly prohibited from imposing tolls on any portion of the highway system used for the transport of goods between the US and Alaska. Mm-hmm. Article 2 of this treaty states, Canada will not impose any highway toll or permit any such toll to be charged for the use of such highways by vehicles or persons. It doesn't get any clearer than that.
Yeah.
Plus, this includes not just imposing fees directly, but also any indirect charges, effectively blocking tolls on the highway used for the transportation of goods. The treaty aims to facilitate smooth and uninterrupted transport along this critical route, which, as mentioned, serves as the sole land link between Alaska and the rest of the US. The 1977 agreement also ensures that the US and Canada will jointly maintain the Alaska Highway, with the US funding reconstruction and Canada overseeing its upkeep. Adding tolls would not only violate these terms, but would also risk complicating the collaborative infrastructure maintenance outlined in the agreement. The legal precedent set by this treaty means that EB's proposed tolls could violate international agreements, forcing British Columbia to face a diplomatic and legal battle. But given how determined British Columbia seems to be to fight back, it wouldn't be shocking if its premier found some sneaky loophole to wiggle through. After all, EB is a man on a mission, one that won't be deterred by anything, not a pesky treaty, and not logistical challenges. As far as these logistical, or should we say technical challenges go, British Columbia's plans could hit a few bumps in the road. For starters, the province doesn't currently have any toll stations along its highways leading to Alaska. This fact probably has something to do with the treaty we keep mentioning. But even if legal barriers were somehow sidestepped, the technical side of things isn't as simple as it sounds. As Ranj Pillai, the premier of Yukon, another province considering tolls, points out, implementing tolls would require significant new infrastructure. Think toll booths, staff to operate them, and likely a brand new set of regulations to get everything up and running. We've got to look at what our actions are and what legal tools we have to make those decisions, said Pillai, sounding a bit like someone who's about to open a can of worms. It's one thing to talk tough. It's another to actually build the system to back it up. Myers, however, doesn't seem to agree with Pillai. Although he isn't in favor of tolls for his state, he doesn't consider tolling rocket science in this case. After all, trucks already have to stop at way stations for safety checks, so adding toll booths wouldn't be a massive leap. But Myers isn't the only one who isn't fond of these tolls. Jamie Benson, the executive director of the Alaska Trucking Association, has also voiced strong concerns. She said the proposal will significantly increase transportation costs, disrupt supply chains, and raise prices for essential goods that Alaskans rely on. Benson urged provincial policymakers to remember the great relationship between Alaska and British Columbia, hoping the federal governments could find a way to avoid tariffs. Seems like the pressure's building on all sides. But you know who doesn't care about this pressure? The people of Canada. Take the folks in Yukon as an example. They're not just sitting back and hoping this all blows over. No, they're getting creative with their retaliation. Pillai has heard from residents who are practically pitching an action plan, including ideas like banning Alaska athletes from the upcoming Arctic Winter Games. And if you think that's bold, some Yukoners are even suggesting they put a ban on none other than Donald Trump himself. Yep, you heard that right. The man known for big game hunts in the territory might find himself on the do not enter list.
What? Jeez. Oh my word, are you serious? Ban Alaska athletes from the Winter Games? See, politics is one thing that I don't get involved with. Because there's something that I always say. You can dislike the person that is, but it's not the whole nation. It's just that one person. Why dislike everybody else, or put everybody else under the same umbrella? Because you dislike what he's doing and what's going on, but then you're going to penalize a state for stupid decision that one person made. If you follow me here, guys, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it don't make no sense. I myself, I don't know you. I can't dislike you. I'm not gonna put your burden on somebody else. If you see what I'm saying. But then when I say ban him, that in itself would, to me, make more logical sense. Make sense. If you see what I'm going, okay. The people in the state that didn't do anything to you, whatever is going on, they don't make that decision. You understand? They're not the one that is sidestepping or causing anything to happen. This is madness. This is madness. But I can understand how Canada feel as well, with what's going on.
And he will surely have to earn his way back. These unconventional ideas paint a pretty clear picture. Canada won't back down.
Yeah.
Even though Trump has eased off some of his initial tariff threats, EB has been firm. We will not tolerate these ongoing threats and uncertainty. We're standing up for Canadians. The toll proposal, though mostly symbolic for now, speaks volumes. The number of trucks affected might be small, but the message behind it is loud and clear. Canada's frustrated and ready to stand its ground. This piling frustration makes us wonder, how far could Canada go? Could it cut off Alaska completely? Let's hypothesize a little. If Canada wanted to cut off Alaska from the rest of the US, it would need to disrupt key transportation and supply routes. Here's how that could be done in theory. First up, blocking land access. With the tolls we discussed, Canada is already making moves in this department, but a true blockade would mean something much more drastic, closing down the Alaska Highway, cutting off the only major overland connection between Alaska and the lower 48 states. As mentioned, this highway is a lifeline for everything from fuel to food to industry in Alaska. So you can imagine the chaos if Canada decided to pull the plug on it.
Exactly. The chaos if that happens. Because it's the only route that connects the two. Jeez. In today's day and age, all this madness is still taking place. People don't think before they act, man. It's just madness. He's not thinking about the people here in Alaska and the damage that or the chaos it would cause when it get cut off from the lower 48. And Canada, at the end, you can't even get mad at them because they're trying to protect themselves as well with all the madness that is going on. And if they say, okay, we're cutting off sea travel, air travel too. You can't come through our airspace. Oh, jeez. Can you imagine that? So land, air, and sea. And we're already struggling, like he said, with accessibility.
After all, Alaska is already struggling with accessibility. Some parts of the biggest US state, like the town of Hyder, depend entirely on Canadian infrastructure. You can't drive into Hyder unless you go through Stewart, British Columbia, or hop on a float plane. Block that road and you've isolated entire communities. Throw in the fact that parts of Alaska are only reachable by road through Canada, Haines and Skagway come to mind. And you can see how shutting down the highway would disrupt the entire region. But let's be real, could Canada actually pull this off? Technically, yes. Almost 80% of the Alaska Highway lies on Canadian soil, which gives the country significant leverage. But a blockade would mean shutting down a road that's responsible for nearly all the goods and services that move into and out of Alaska by land, which wouldn't be without consequences. The economic fallout would be immense, and it's not just Alaska that would suffer. Businesses across Canada would see disruptions too. But remember, Canada is tired of the ongoing tariff threats. The idea of closing off Alaska's primary road access might seem extreme, but as tensions rise, who knows? The way things are headed, the Alaska Highway might just become the world's most dramatic game of chicken. Now, if Canada really wanted to crank up the pressure, blocking marine access could be a game changer.
Yeah.
Alaska's Inside Passage stretches 500 miles along the Pacific Ocean and boasts wildlife-filled fjords, tidewater glaciers, and lush island scenery.
Yeah.
It's a coastal beauty. Yes, but more importantly, it's a crucial route for Alaska, and more than 90% of Alaska-bound cargo is shipped by ocean. If Canada wanted to make things difficult, shutting this route down would send shockwaves through Alaskan logistics. After all, this is the route freighters, fishing boats, and passenger ferries take through Canadian waters.
Exactly, in order to get here. So if they were to even, can you imagine? Because Alaska depend a lot on tourism here as well, because millions of people come here during the summertime, even in the wintertime, to have the experience. So I didn't even realize that so many tourists comes here in the summertime each year. It's crazy. The figures are it's way up there. So cruise ship, all you can think of from all over the world, people are coming to just get a little taste of what it is like here. All these freights coming in with goods and
to avoid harsher conditions of the open ocean. So blocking the Inside Passage means forcing vessels to take the open ocean route, a longer, rougher, and far less efficient path. Not exactly the cruise ship captain's dream. Speaking of cruises, Alaska's thriving cruise industry depends on these Canadian waters. In 2023 alone, a record 1.65 million cruise passengers used this route to visit Southeast Alaska. If Canada cuts it off, not only does Alaska face a tourism crisis, but the ripple effect on the cruise industry would be catastrophic. We're talking cancelled trips, lost revenue, and angry passengers left stranded in Canadian ports.
So this is where you're looking at when these cruise ship docks, especially in Seaward, where I go camping every now and then, when I take you guys along with me and show you guys what's going on. This is one of those places, and this area strive off of these things because it shuts down during the winter time and only operates during the summertime. Can you imagine if that happens? Oh my God.
Then there's the Prince Rupert Ferry Terminal, which serves as a critical transit hub for Alaskans heading south. If Canada decides to close it, they're essentially slamming the door on Alaska's travel connections to the lower 48. That's not to mention the fact that this terminal is the world's first marine pre-clearance location, meaning US Customs handles inspections in Canada. But would Canada take such drastic steps? Again, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Blocking marine access would shake Alaska and the US to its core, and the consequences will be felt far beyond the waters. Canada's playing the long game, and with the Inside Passage and Prince Rupert Terminal in its hands, it has the cards to make a major impact. But when we shift to air travel, the stakes drop a little. Sure, Alaska's air traffic is crucial, but Canada's influence in the skies is more about subtle inconvenience than full-on chaos. Here's the deal. US commercial and military flights between Alaska and the lower 48 often pass through Canadian airspace. Now, if Canada decided to deny these overflight rights, it would force planes to take a longer, costlier route, either over the Pacific or the Arctic. It's a hassle, for sure, but it's not the kind of knockout punch other blockade methods would deliver. At most, we're talking higher fuel costs, more logistical complexity, and maybe a few more angry passengers. But the effect is relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. Alaska's air infrastructure could still function, just with a few detours thrown in. That said, air traffic does rely heavily on coordination with Canadian air traffic control. The smooth operation between US and Canadian aviation authorities keeps flights flowing efficiently. If Canada threw a wrench in that system, you'd see delays, sure, but nothing catastrophic. The real disruption would come in the form of emergency diversions. Aircraft flying to or from Alaska that might need to land in Canada in case of an in-flight emergency. And that's where cooperation matters. But even then, it's all temporary setbacks. What isn't a temporary setback, however, is Canada's grip on Alaska's trade and commerce. This is where the real havoc could be wreaked. Much of Alaska's fuel, food, and consumer goods come through Canada. So imagine Canada slapping heavy tariffs, closing border crossings, or banning specific trade routes. It's not just an inconvenience, it's an economic disaster. Alaska would face shortages of everything from fuel to construction materials, and those costs would skyrocket in no time. Canada holds a pretty solid position here, thanks to its control over rail and freight services. There's no direct railway linking Alaska to the lower 48, so goods are constantly shipped through Canadian rails. The port of Vancouver is a critical hub, handling a massive portion of shipments to and from Alaska. From food to fuel, everything moves through Canadian ports and railways before reaching its destination. Take that away, and Alaska's logistical system would simply collapse. But this isn't a one-way street. Every year, over $1 billion in trade flows between Alaska and Canada.
So Canada, at the end of the day, also benefits. So if that is shut off, then here we go. The value of export to Canada cut down as well. 1 billion in trade flows between Alaska and Canada. That's every year. So they will be affected too.
Exports about $596 million to Canada, while importing $753 million worth of goods. This means that Canada's economy would suffer too. Although the country is already making moves to reduce its dependence on the US across the board, this kind of economic disruption would still sting. That's putting it lightly. This wouldn't be the true cost of an Alaska blockade. The true cost is about the people, the families, and the small towns that rely on seamless cross-border exchange for their very survival. According to recent statistics, trade with Canada supports over 20,000 jobs in Alaska alone, and that's on top of the 4,350 employees in Canadian-owned businesses across Alaska. These aren't just numbers on a page, they're families relying on that paycheck to put food on the table and pay their bills. Take away the trade and their livelihoods are at risk. As one local leader put it, I don't see how the common person gets anything out of it. I think only the citizens bear the brunt of this cost. With this in mind, do you think Canada would ever go through a full blockade of Alaska? How much pressure would it need to face before taking such drastic measures? And what do you think the US response would be, both to the proposed tolls and a more drastic blockade? Share your thoughts in the comments section below.
Scary thinking about it, if any. It doesn't matter which blockade. It doesn't matter which area they decided to say, okay, nah, this ain't happening. We're shutting this down because we are not taking these threats lightly. We will suffer in any way that they decide. And like he said, it's not the high ups that may be affected. It's the common man, me and families and businesses that strive with the connection between the two countries. You understand me? That would definitely be affected severely. And like I said, guys, I hope it doesn't happen or it never come to fruition. I pray and hope that it never happens. But at the same time, you don't even know, because like I said, it's as if people don't think things through. It's people in government, they don't think things through, man. It's like they like to cause disruption and chaos, and they like to sever ties so easily. Think about the repercussions of. This is too much. When there's so much going on already, it's inflation. Brian, thank you for sending me this one. Like I said, when I saw this 2 days ago, I was like, interesting. I didn't even check this out because, to be honest with you guys, I try to stay out of the news, man, because it's so depressing. There's so much going on, and it's a drag. But when I saw this, I said, no, I have to look at this. That's for sure. So, I like how he said it. Let's explore the possibilities if this do happen, the scenarios, what would happen if this takes place? Because in truth and in fact, we do rely heavily on Canada to get things here. And like I said, those remote places that if it gets cut off, then they're doomed. And the expense of everything through the roof, and things is already expensive here. Can you imagine? And blocking athletes from their winter games, that, considering doing that to me right there, that hurts as well. So it's like everybody get hurt in the process. But Alaska would be hit harder than anybody else. You see, Island Girl, and I'm running out of here. That's my 2 cents. I'm not going to go too deep into this one. I just think that Yeah, let's leave it right there. It's your island girl and I'm running out of here. Be good, be kind. Stay safe. Love each other, guys. Man, I'll catch you guys in another video. Love you guys. Bye.